Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 in Cafeteria B of Westfield High School, 550 Dorian Road, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to transact any other business to come properly before the board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, February 29th, 2024 caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Patty, can we have a roll call?
Sahar Aziz, Rob Bonaccio,
Here.
Kent Diamond,
Here.
Brendan Galligan,
Here.
Charles Gelinas, Layla Morelli,
Here.
Sonal Patel,
Here.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Here.
Mary Wickens.
Here. Can everyone please remain standing for the flag salute? Casey? March is Youth Art Month and Music in Our Schools Month. While we enjoy celebrating the arts in our schools year-round, I am particularly pleased tonight to welcome Supervisor of Visual and Performing Arts Shauna Longo, along with members of the cast of the Westfield High School spring production of Heathers, the musical, and musical director John Brzezowski. Ms. Longo, I invite you up to the podium to introduce our musical talent and to say a few words about the many exciting events and programs that allow the arts to thrive in Westfield Public Schools, enriching the lives of our students and the entire Westfield community.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. So I'm so excited to be here tonight. Coming off of, I just came from the Roig Collection Gallery downtown. We had an amazing opening reception to kick off Youth Art Month and Music in Our Schools Month. It was wall-to-wall people for the entire over 2 hours. It was so fantastic seeing parents and students mingling downtown to check out the over 200 pieces of artwork that are featured between the Rialto, One Westfield Place Preview Center, the library, and then at the Roig Collection Gallery, we have featured 2 high school students have had a gallery opening tonight as part of that opening reception. So I'm very grateful to the town and to the WCA, Westfield Coalition for the Arts, for supporting this program as well, and all of the community partnerships that have been forged in making this come to life. In addition to that, we have performances happening throughout the month. We had the Breakfast with the Bands this past Saturday. We have this Friday, the Roosevelt and Edison bands will be doing a tour of the elementary schools for their Meosum tour, as we're calling it, which is new this year. And then Franklin Wilson and Lincoln all have assemblies throughout the month focusing on Music in Our Schools month. The high school wind ensemble is hosting their annual March Madness tournament, but not March Madness, month of March, like March Madness. So it's a high stakes, there's a bracket up, and it's open to all of the high school band students as well as all of the music staff. So I had to fill out my bracket ahead of time, and the winner gets to conduct a song on the spring concert, which is a very fun little festive thing. And then the last thing, on Monday, I will actually be traveling to Washington, D.C. To present a brief on Capitol Hill, celebrating 39 years of Music in Our Schools month across the country. So as part of the CMA Foundation and the National Association for Music Education, I was selected to represent our country, and I'm proud to bring Westfield along with that in all of the PR that is going out surrounding that briefing on Monday. So very excited. It will be live streamed on Facebook if anyone is interested on the NAFME Facebook site. So last is it is March musical season. So this weekend we have SpongeBob the Musical opening at Roosevelt. Next week is our high school production of Heathers the Musical Teen Edition, and then the week after that is Edison's version of Frozen the Musical, which we are very excited for all the princes and princesses to come see, and the kids, I know, are going to get a real kick out of it this year. So it is my pleasure to bring up the cast and directing staff of Heathers. We look forward to this little mini teaser for everyone. So thank you so much. Come on up, guys.
September 1st, 1989. Dear Diary, I think I'm a good person. I think there's good in everyone, but here we are, first day of senior year. I see these kids I've known all my life, and I wonder, what happened? Veronica? Veronica, Veronica, Veronica. Dream, you pray, and you get your way. Ask me how it feels, looking like hell on wheels. My God, it's beautiful. I might be beautiful, and when you're beautiful, it's a beautiful freaking day.
Are we gonna have a problem? Did zombies eat your brain? You've come so far. Why now are you yanking on my chain? I normally slap your face off in front of the whole damn school, but I'm feeling nice. Here's some advice. Listen up, fool. Looking hot, buying stuff they cannot. Spending hard, maxing dad's credit card. Skipping gym, dissing her, kissing him. Killer clothes, kicking nerds in the nose. If you lack the juice, go play Duck, Duck, Goose. Let your mommy fix you ice cream. Or come hang with me, and tonight will be dirty dancing with the football team. Honey, what you waiting for? Welcome to my candy store. Time for you to prove you're not a loser anymore. And step into my candy store. Oh, now, girls. That is no way to act in front of the Westerberg Board of Education. Hi, my name's Miss Fleming. I'm a guidance counselor here at Westerberg High. And I'm here to tell you that I did my senior thesis at Berkeley on the subject of pediatric psychotherapeutic musicology. So I speak with some authority when I tell you the best way to eliminate bullying and suicide is by first eliminating fear, by creating a safe zone in which we are all equal. 1, 2, take me home, kids! On your deepest fear, yeah, and your pain will disappear. And your scars and your flaws will look lovely because you shine, you shine, you shine a light. You shine a, shine a, shine a light. Shine a light, yeah!
Thank you for that great intro to the musical. I'm sure we'll be all excited. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mary for announcements.
Hey, thank you, Sonal. The Rotary Club of Westfield is accepting nominations for 31st Annual Charles Philhauer Fellowship Award and the 2nd Annual Wayman Steengraff Award. The Philhauer recognizes an outstanding full-time educator in grades pre-K to 5 in the Westfield Public Schools. Introduced last year, the Steengraff Award recognizes a full-time employee who is not a certified teacher. Submission guidelines are posted on the news section of the district and school websites and on district and social media. The deadline to submit a nomination for both awards is Thursday, March 28th. And I just want to say that presentation was amazing.
Thank you, Mary. Ken?
Thank you. Calling all students in grades K through 12, the Westfield Public School District is hosting an Earth Day 2024 poster contest. The 2024 Earth Day theme is Planet versus Plastics. Submission details can be found on the news section of the district and school websites and on district social media. The deadline to submit an entry for consideration is March 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Kristen?
Meet the candidates running for the Westfield Board of Education as the Parent-Teacher Council holds a virtual candidates night on Monday, March 18th, 2024 from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. More information, including how to register for the virtual forum, is posted on the board election page on the district website under the board tab. Candidate bios will be posted soon. A link to the virtual forum will be provided on the day of the event to everyone who is registered. Board Candidates Night will be moderated, with candidates asked a variety of questions to be gathered from the public prior to the forum. Questions may be submitted to the PTC at westfieldnjk12.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Sahar?
Westfield High School 12th graders Jacob Blaustein, Yenjae Hu, Catherine Kangari, Tej Mehta, and Nathan Renders have advanced as finalists in the 2024 National Merit Scholarship Program, having met academic and other standards to become eligible for scholarships. The selection of 7,100 merit scholarship winners from the group of more than 15,000 finalists nationwide is now in progress, with scholarship winners and national merit scholars to be announced over the next few months. Congratulations to Jacob, Yenjae, Catherine, Tej, and Nathan. And I also want to wish Ramadan Mubarak for those who are practicing, which starts on Monday.
Thank you, Sahar. Layla?
All Westfield Public Schools will have an early dismissal this Friday, March 8th, as staff participate in professional development in the afternoon. For the early dismissal schedule, please visit the school closings page under district information on the district website.
Thank you, Layla. Rob?
The next regular public meeting of the Board of Education will be on Tuesday, March 26th in Cafeteria B at Westfield High School beginning at 8 p.m. This will be a public hearing before the board votes on the final base budget for the 2024-25 school district operating budget and the additional spending proposal that will go before voters on April 16th. The board meeting will be live streamed via the district YouTube channel, which viewers can access on the board tab on the district website. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, March 22nd, also on the board tab.
Thank you, Rob. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Gonzalez and Ms. Patty Ramos for a report by district administration on the budget.
Thank you very much. This evening's presentation is the third of our series of budget presentations since the start of 2024, in which we've been increasingly adding details based upon data that we've been receiving, guidance we've been receiving, and also the most recent state aid figures that were recently released by the New Jersey Department of Education and the Governor's Office. So everything that we've done up to this point has been deliberative up until we were finally able to get that last piece of the puzzle this past weekend. What you will see this evening is an overview of the proposal for the 2024-2025 school district operating budget, which will include the tax levy request that we will be presenting to the taxpayers in April as part of an additional funding proposal. So this evening, our focus will be on providing an overview on the feedback we received from the community-wide thought exchange, as well as an overview of both the fiscal and the programmatic enhancements in aspects of the budget. And then sure enough, we will round out our presentation discussing the tax impact on the average homeowner based upon the proposed operating budget. The most important thing to understand is that tonight's presentation will be the first in really three steps. Tonight will be the first step in which we present a preliminary budget that gets submitted to the county for review and approval. The next step will be at the March 26th board meeting, at which time the Board of Education will have the opportunity to vote on a base budget as well as any additional funding proposal that would be presented to the Board of Education on April 16th, along with the board election. And then the third and final step in the district operating budget for 24-25 will be the actual vote on April 16th, which will be the taxpayers' opportunity to be able to weigh in on any additional funding proposals beyond the base budget. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the presentation, beginning with our 2024-25 priorities. I always want to start here because I think it's important to remind ourselves as a board and as a community what the priorities were going into the development of this budget. And each year since I've been here, we've attempted to prioritize a student experience so that anything that we do to make decisions about adding or subtracting will minimize any negative impact on students. So we want to prioritize student outcomes. We want to keep our class sizes and enrollments consistent. We want to be able to preserve existing programs and offerings, but as of the experience last year when we were able to now present our budget to the taxpayers for a vote, we also have made the decision to actively expand our programs and offerings and do so with a fiscally responsible eye at all times. And then last but not least, we also recognize that all of our educational programming and all of our educational experiences rely on a facility and an educational environment that is suitable for the instruction and the programming that we're promoting. So we've emphasized the improvement and this sustainability of our buildings and grounds as an additional priority going into this school year. Now, before going into the details of the budget, I did want to give a brief overview of the Thought Exchange. The Thought Exchange was a new platform that was introduced into this budget cycle that allowed us to reach out to our school community, consisting of all members of our staff, our community, our families, as well as our high school students, to ask them a simple question. In planning for the 24-25 operating budget, what areas should be prioritized in order to enhance the educational experience and well-being of our students? And through that question, we were grateful enough to have received a large quantity of responses. 1,554 people participated, 967 thoughts were shared, with over close to 53,000 ratings. And what that means is anytime someone would present a thought in response to that question, 53,000 ratings were issued that combined all of the different ratings that people shared on the various thoughts. So you weren't just providing feedback on what you thought was a priority, but you also got to provide a sounding board from some of the other thoughts that were shared out there. As you could see, based upon the various roles that were identified, we had 62% of the participants identified themselves as parents or guardians of current students. We also had about 135 students, or 9% of the population who participated, identified as students, and then we had 25% as school staff, 3% as community members, or 3% who preferred not to say what role they played. In summary, the responses provided a great wealth of variety in what areas for prioritization the board and the administration should consider. As you see in this summary, everything that you could think of, from school environment to infrastructure to curriculum to increasing wages for staff, as well as emphasizing extracurricular mental health programs, diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as security. All of those were recommendations, were areas of priority that were shared throughout the experience. In looking at how those thoughts were then categorized, you'll notice that many of the themes started to come together and coalesce. And what you see here is just a quick chart that identified some of the top themes that were rated by the various star scores that they were given. So you'll notice the first column, if you can't see from back there, the first column indicates that facilities was a common theme that was highly rated. The buildings and class sizes, again, probably related to facilities as well. So some of these themes, had overlap with one another. But once again, building, class sizes, full-day kindergarten, all were recognized as consistently high areas of agreement by individuals who offered that as a thought for an area of priority, but also rated it as an area of priority. We also had paraprofessionals and the ability to retain our paraprofessionals and prevent them from seeking employment elsewhere. Also a focus on the arts, our curriculum, and also retaining and supporting high quality staff in general, all supported the areas of priority that many individuals offered through the thought exchange. If you were to look at the top 4 thoughts that were offered, you'll notice that facilities were listed as the top 3. Actually, if you were to group all of those stakeholder groups together, I want to say facilities were probably listed as different comments, but in about 22 of the top 25 comments that were offered, suggesting that facilities improvements, modernization, and upgrades were all areas of great interest to those who took part. And then on this particular slide, you'll notice that the third highest rated individual thought, not the theme that I shared in the previous slide, but the third highest individual thought was focusing on our ability to keep and hire good teachers. Now, this slide is just an example of the different types of exchanges and thoughts that were shared, both on different sides of the thoughts that were offered, but also in common areas of interest. So on the one side, you had a focus on investing in infrastructure, facilities. But then on the other side, you see a focus on investing in personnel. Those who were participating in the exchange recognized that we had high quality educators, recognized that we had highly qualified and committed support staff, and recognize that we need to, as a school district, find ways to invest in them, both by providing them with competitive wages so that they could be able to continue to work here without having to seek employment elsewhere, but also making sure that we provide them with the necessary supports to be successful in their respective roles. But the common ground in all of this is, despite the differing views, if you were focused on personnel or focused on facilities, the common ground, which is no surprise, is a focus on making sure that we allocate resources in education, making sure that whether it's improving in infrastructure or personnel or updating curriculum, the common goal is to enhance the educational experience, which obviously was the goal of the survey and the exchange altogether. So what do we do with all that? What we did was we continued to refine our budget. We continued to look at ways that data and that feedback could help us in presenting our budget, making decisions about what to prioritize, what we can do to align our budget to the needs and the requests of the community, but also recognizing that everything that was offered in that exchange and everything that everyone in this room and everyone in the community who's watching, unfortunately, we can't do everything at one time. We can't afford to be able to hire as many teachers as we'd like, and engage and increase as many programs as we'd like, because in some cases we just don't have the space or the capacity to do so. But what the feedback does is it allows us to gather that feedback and that prioritization to help inform both this work and then future work. You're going to hear more and more over the course of this presentation at various points and future board meetings the need to move forward with a facilities referendum in order to take that facilities priority and address it in a very substantive way. That isn't the purpose of tonight's presentation, but I just wanted to drop that very subtle foreshadowing that it will be coming into focus clearly in the coming months and certainly in the coming year ahead. So getting back to the topic at hand, this budget presentation is graphically represented and summarized in the chart that you see above or behind me. The presentation graph shows 3 different buckets of revenue that support the tax levy portion of our operating budget. As mentioned in the prior meetings, the Board of Education now has the responsibility and the sole responsibility for approving the base budget for a school district's operating budget for the next school year, as long as it does not exceed the 2% or whatever the allowable tax levy cap is for that particular year. So in this case, when you look at the blue portion of the graph, what you see is that the Board of Education will vote on March 26th on a tax levy increase equal to approximately 2.62% of an increase from last year. And what that means is that in addition to the 2% allowable tax levy cap that we've been provided, the state of New Jersey has also recognized that the increases in health benefits in the state health benefits plan increased to the point that we were also eligible for an increased waiver to our tax levy cap in order to make sure that we could absorb that healthcare increase into our budget without having to negatively impact our ability to provide such benefits. So what that means is our maximum allowable tax levy grew from 2% to 2.62%. And that portion of the budget will be what the Board of Education will vote on this evening as a preliminary tax levy increase, and then for the March 26th meeting. As shared in the past, unfortunately, everything that we need to educate students consistent with the work that we've started this year, consistent with the level of the programming, consistent with the course guidelines and the enrollment guidelines and class sizes, in order to do all of the above, unfortunately, it does not all fit in a 2.62 base budget. In order to increase the tax levy to our maximum allowable percentage, unfortunately, there are still aspects of our budget, namely individuals, personnel, human resources, that are outside of that budget. And that's what you see in the 0.59%. So the 0.59% represents that educational continuity, that ability for us to continue our offerings of class sizes, programs, and activities to our students consistent with what we're doing today, while also building upon the experiences that have taken place over the course of the year, many of which we've shared and our committees have shared with regards to our counseling, programming, our curriculum instruction, all of the things relative to our strategic plan, all are able to continue, as well as our staffing and programs, provided that we have the base budget and that 0.59% additional increase through the next school year. But that wasn't where we were ending for this school year. We also, in the conversation with the Board of Education, spoke about continuing to ask the support of the taxpayers to be able to look at ways that we can enhance our programming for the upcoming school year. So the 0.9% represents, again, another opportunity for us to build upon the work of the school district, align it to our strategic plan, keep us moving forward so that we can not find ourselves just stagnant, but actually growing as a school district and investing in our schools, things and themes that you heard earlier in the thought exchange. So what's in the base budget? This is just an overview, but I do want to highlight that in the base budget, as I mentioned, we maintain all current programming, including visual performing arts and athletics. No proposed cuts to staffing, no proposed cuts to offerings in any of those realms. We're providing funding for curriculum writing and professional development, along with technology and management software to make that work more meaningful and accessible not only to staff but members of the community, so that they could access these curricular documents more readily. We're also looking at ways to upgrade our technology and technology equipment offerings, so that as we continue to explore ways to enhance enrichment experiences, computer sciences, STEM, we need to make sure our facilities are able to keep up with that. So our base budget includes the ability to do all of the above. We're also looking at, and again, through the feedback that we received, but also consistent with what we experienced, at modernizing our classrooms, creating more conducive classroom environments and learning experiences to align with the types of 21st century learning that our students are receiving. So what does that mean? It means we need to replace our dated furniture, our classrooms that probably look very similar to the classrooms that many of us who have gone to school in this building even has probably seen before, but also making sure that the technology, the audio, the visual, and the ability to collaborate and coordinate with one another is facilitated by the physical learning environment. We also want to make sure that we are continuing to fund instructional media centers and materials, our libraries, making sure that we're continuing to expand our offerings so that they align with our curricular needs, to align with all of our initiatives, and to ensure that our knowledge centers and our hubs for learning in our media centers become a valuable resource for students and classrooms alike. We also want to ensure that as we provide support for wellness to our students, that we don't forget that our staff wellness is equally important to the success of our student experiences. So we did include a modest amount of funding to support staff wellness, to be able to allow them to be able to manage both the stress of the work that they experience, but also to provide those resilient behaviors and strategies to help them to be able to help our students. And certainly each and every day, those strategies come into play. And then last but not least, and I think very indicative of the work that this Board of Education, this administration has really committed to, which is ways that we could take existing funding, existing resources, and figure out ways to maximize those experiences. And one of those opportunities comes in our ability to educate students in our district who currently may not be able to who we may not be able to provide those resources to because we don't have the facilities or the staff to do so. So what I'm referring to specifically is the expansion of special education programming that currently exists at the elementary school but does not exist at the middle school. So what that means is when our students who are currently being educated in the elementary school age into a middle school level, we unfortunately may have to make a decision to find an educational environment outside of the district rather than allowing them to be able to continue to learn in an environment that is near their home, with their friends, within the school district where they've spent the last 5-6 years as a student. So by creating 2 new in-house special education programs, it allows us to continue to meet our students' individualized educational plan needs, but also doing so in an environment that is least restrictive by allowing them to be in a general education class building along with their peers, their neighborhood peers, and being able to, most importantly, meet their academic, social, emotional, or any other related needs. So that's very exciting to me. It's very exciting to the administration, and I look forward to being able to create that opportunity to educate all of our students within our school district. Now, moving on, you'll notice we highlight in the bar graph that red piece, that educational continuity that will move us from the base budget on the prior slide, which is what the board will approve, to now the red and the green, which will be what the taxpayers approve. The educational continuity that you see represented here is equivalent to approximately 7 staff members. When we calculate this, we're focusing on the the bachelor's, step one, the lowest paid level of the teaching staff. But we unfortunately have no choice when we're looking at our human resources as the largest part of our expenditures. Unfortunately, when the budget spills over beyond the permissible tax levy cap, the sources of the budget that are remaining, unfortunately, are in those human resources. So we represent 7 staff members here. I think it's important to note in January, when we were first calculating this, we didn't have the benefit of any waivers. We didn't have the benefit of any additional state aid. So when we were first anticipating what the impact was the impact was almost 3 times the size of what you see here. So with each and every opportunity, we continued to refine our budget and make sure that we equipped ourselves with the necessary data to ensure that the number of additional staff that would not fit into a base budget was the least amount as possible. It's also the reason why we didn't, over time, continue to give that number, because we didn't want to start sounding the alarms about how many staff members may be in that red portion until we knew for sure. So as you see listed, the breakdown would try to expand that impact across the 10 schools, so that 3 elementary school teachers, 2 intermediate and 2 high school teachers would potentially fall into that category. Doesn't mean that anyone's being cut. It just means that is the portion of our staff who exists in the additional spending proposal that will be presented to the public on April 16th. Then we look at the green portion. These are the proposed enhancements beyond the educational continuity. These are the additional program experiences that currently don't exist in our school district in the way that you'll see in the next few slides, or supports that don't currently exist in the next few slides. So first and foremost, we wanted to come up with an opportunity to be able to offer an enhancement across all 10 schools. What can we do to include into this budget an opportunity to benefit students across all schools at the elementary, middle, and high school level? And the opportunity to do so sort of took the same approach that we did last year. Last year, we focused on academic support and remediation for students who needed it. And when we revisited our strategic plan, looking at expanding our offerings for students was not limited to only those in remedial need, but also those opportunities for supporting enrichment offerings. So part of the additional spending proposal includes an enhancement to our enrichment programs across the elementary, middle, and high school level. In the realm of K-5 enrichment, what we're looking at is providing an additional 3 elementary enrichment teachers, adding them to the budget so that they would be able to provide an enrichment program for all students, targeting computer science, design thinking standards, all through fine motor development, as well as being able to provide not just those Tier 1 supports, but also those Tier 2 supports. If you recall, Tier 1 are for everyone. Tier 2 begin to be more specialized in their approach, whereas Tier 3 is an even more targeted group. So by having additional elementary and dedicated elementary enrichment teachers, we will now be able to develop that program in a way that is commensurate with what we're doing at the remedial level for academic support, but now to be able to do that at an enrichment level in our elementary schools. But to do so, we need the additional staff. When you look at what we're proposing at the secondary level, it's really looking at what we can do both in our G&T and enrichment offerings at the intermediate level, as well as being able to look at our elective offerings at the high school. So part of the proposal will include looking at our professional learning that is going to be necessary to pay staff so that they could develop the courses and the experiences that will eventually make their way into our intermediate level course experience, but also at the high school being able to add an additional teacher so that that additional teacher will take on classes so that existing teachers could now start to offer more elective offerings in the areas of high school robotics, home systems technology, and food and nutrition science. So again, really trying to expand our enrichment offerings at the high school through a course catalog that now provides a offering of electives that we couldn't do without that additional staffing support. In the base budget, I also want to highlight that in the base budget, when we refer to expanding our special education in-house offerings, that allows us to provide support to our students through that programming that is delivered by in-house teachers, in-house behaviorists, in-house paraprofessionals. But it also requires that we have additional oversight and supervision of those programs. On the one hand, anything that is mandated, any program that is mandated, we cannot put into an additional spending proposal. That's the reason why that additional program or that change in program exists at in the base budget. A supervisor is not a mandated program. So that's the reason that the supervisor is now in the additional spending proposal. Not to say it's not needed, just to say that it's not a mandated resource that we would have to put into the first blue portion. However, in order to effectively support our students, our teachers, both in that program, but our ability to effectively support our teachers and our students across the schools, currently we have one director of assistant superintendent of pupil personnel services and one supervisor for those programs, as well as single supervisors who coordinate content areas and programs across the way. This is our opportunity to add one additional supervisor to assist in supporting the expansion of our special education programs, our academic support programs, and all of those programs that lead to targeted interventions and supports for our students through their teachers and the administration working together. We also recognize that there's a need for us to focus on making sure that we keep qualified staff. I had mentioned it through the thought exchange, which is why I started the presentation with the thought exchange. But one area that came up on several occasions, and again, even if members of the public or others did not add it as a thought, they were able to rate it. And across the board, enhancing compensation for paraprofessionals was an area of interest and focus because of the need that they provide to our students. They are able to provide the support to our teachers and students in the classroom in order to allow them to meet their educational potential, but also to provide the necessary assistance to allow them to be more focused, to be able to work together with other students, as well as to be able to maintain relationships with one another in the classroom. All of those functions and more are the functions that our valuable paraprofessionals provide. However, we need to make sure that they are compensated in a way that allows them to provide those services and not seek employment elsewhere. So we are proposing an enhancement to compensation for the paraprofessionals in order to fill some assignments that are difficult to retain individuals. So we have very intense programming and student needs that require a level of specialization and commitment, and we're proposing enhancements in compensations and stipends for that category of employee. And then last but not least, I do want to highlight the final items in the additional spending proposal. And one is in the area of buildings and grounds. As you recall, in the priorities for the 24-25 school district budget, we did highlight the improvement of our buildings and grounds and our ability to sustain those investments and resources in our learning experience requires, once again, human resources. In this case, we're looking at including an assistant supervisor of buildings and grounds, as well as 2 additional groundskeepers and maintenance staff who will be able to work together with the existing maintenance staff, custodians and groundskeepers, in order to ensure that we take care of all of the expanding facility needs that you see all around our 10 schools, and actually our 11th facility being our board office as well. All of those facilities require maintenance both inside and out. They require maintenance to the grounds as well as maintenance to the buildings themselves, not just cleaning but repairing, not just repairing but maintaining, and also doing everything necessary so that our facilities are not just safe, but that they're conducive to high quality learning. So that also includes those 3 individuals, an assistant supervisor and 2 additional staff members within the Buildings and Grounds Department. And then last but not least, our emphasis and prioritization of school security is also included in this additional spending proposal. With the addition of 3 part-time school safety and security personnel, we would be able to work with our existing SROs who are currently housed at the intermediate level and the high schools, along with our school safety and security specialist, Mr. Frank Padavano, to ensure that we have a visible presence in all of our schools throughout the course of the school day. So right now, our dedicated presence at the intermediate and high schools is offset by a single individual who makes his way through the security specialist, as well as our partners in law enforcement who make their rounds through our schools whenever possible and whenever they're making their rounds throughout their community. However, this would provide our ability to not only provide that visible support and presence during the day, but also enhance our ability to provide support for after-school activities, whether it be concerts, plays, parent programming, athletic activities. Having additional part-time safety and security specialists allow us to work with schedules to be able to adjust and allow for that coverage both during the day and in the after-school evening events. All of that would be part of the additional spending proposal that equates to that green portion, the 0.9% of the April 16th vote. So at this time, I'd like to just invite Patty Ramos to walk us through the dollars and cents associated with the budget. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, now for the fun stuff, the numbers. That's what you've all been waiting for, right? So if you look at this slide, you'll see we were waiting. The reason why this hasn't been presented before with numbers, we were waiting for our state aid numbers to come in. They came in last Thursday afternoon. We received approximately $849,000 more in state aid than prior year. What that did was, as Ray said, that allowed us to take more of the current staff that were in the additional spending proposal and move them back into the base budget. Was our intent from the beginning. As Ray said, we started out with almost 3 times the number in the additional spending proposal, and our goal was to keep as many staff as possible in the base budget. So on this slide, you'll see the revenues at the adjusted cap, and then so you'll see the $115 million. This budget, the $131 million, is what the board will be voting on tonight and on March 26th. For tonight, the board is also voting to submit the additional spending proposal to the county for approval. That's the $1,675,397, which includes everything that Ray just went over in the additional sections of the budget, the non-blue. And then once the board approves that to go to the county for review, they approve it, that's what would be on the ballot on April 16th for the voters to see. The board would be approving the $131 million on the March 26th agenda. So in our revenues, we have our local tax levies, obviously the biggest portion. Fund balance is what we generate each year. A lot of it is from state aid, not extraordinary aid and different funding sources. Interest revenue has been up. So we use that money to offset for the taxpayers each year. So 1.5 million of what we generate in a year goes to offset taxes in the next year. Our state aid is now $8.3 million. Extraordinary aid, we budget $975,000, but last year we got over $2 million in that, but we don't really know how the state funds it each year, or how much they're going to fund, so it's always wise to budget that at a lower number. And then our miscellaneous revenues, which include our interest income, gate receipts, student fees, building rentals, we budget $878,000. That obviously this year we're generating a lot more in interest revenue than that number, but we don't know where that's going to go. So it wouldn't be wise to up that number and then come in less in the future year. And then you'll see a transfer from capital reserve. Those are our capital reserve projects that we're going to do over the summer or the course of the next few years, just like the Roosevelt facade work is ongoing. That's coming out of our capital reserve savings account, you like to think of it as. So that's not impacting the local tax levy. That's money that we've set aside already to do those enhancements outside of a referendum, outside of asking for more money from the taxpayers in any one year. So now if you go to the next slide.
Patty, if I could just interject, I do want to highlight just a key point with the state aid. It's important to note over the past several years, the governor's office has been consistent in their commitment to fully fund the funding formula for school districts. And we have been fortunate over the past several years to have seen increases in state aid. That phased-in approach has moved us closer and closer to being fully funded. So as of this year's state aid receipt, we are technically fully funded by the New Jersey Department of Education's funding formula standards. So that's great. Well, what it also means is we shouldn't expect more next year. So our projections each year always crossed our fingers and appropriately anticipated that we would see an increase, but that is not going to be guaranteed from this point moving forward. We don't hope to see any cuts in state aid, but we don't necessarily anticipate any increases or dramatic increases in coming years. So that ability to offset the tax levy impact is going to be really focused on looking at the tax levy increase maximum allowable under the cap and whatever flat state aid that we should anticipate year after year. I just wanted to share that as a key point.
So now we go to the expenditure slide, and as Ray said with state aid, there was a difference this year with the health benefits, because districts, we're not the only district that's trying to make a 2% budget work. In the past, when state health benefits went up by 6%, there was no adjustment to the 2% tax levy cap. This year it was. They're saying any health benefit increases over 2%, they were giving us an adjustment for the difference between the 2% and the 4%. So the state is starting to recognize that we just can't fit within the 2%. It's not working. So they're even giving more adjustments. But like Ray said, the state aid, the funding formula is fully met. We don't know where it's going to go for next year. If they're going to come up with a new funding formula that'll go over the course of a number of years again, or what's going to happen. So on the expenditure side, as you can see, the largest part of our budget is our salaries and benefits. And as you'll see in the additional spending proposal, the only thing in the additional spending proposal is salaries and benefits, as Ray went over on the previous slides. It's the additional staff, it's the 7 current staff members, and the benefits associated with them. That's what makes up the $1.675 million that will be voted on April 16th. Our other big pots of money expenditures are out-of-district tuition. That's for students mandated by IEPs, and that's why we're looking at more in-district programming. As Ray said, we're bringing 2 programs into our intermediate school. We also need space. That's why we're looking at referendum planning, as Ray also mentioned, to house these programs. So students that come in pre-K can stay all the way through till 21 if they have to. So we'll have the appropriate staffing space for these students. Transportation costs go along, the majority of it, with our special education students mandated by their IEPs. We also have transportation for in-district students, but the out-of-district ones are the ones that cost more money. Our supplies, materials, and equipment, you can see that, and our required maintenance of school facilities is not large compared to how much we're spending on staff. Our outside providers, consultants, and district insurance obviously mandated. The outside providers and consultants, the majority of that money is based on mandated services in students' in the IEP, students' individualized education plans. And then the capital reserve projects, again, the $4 million is on here. So now if you go to the next 2 charts, this kind of puts it, out there visually for everyone to see that the majority of our budget is funded by our local tax levy. This is a normal slide for districts like Westfield, the wealthier districts in New Jersey. The majority of the funding comes from local tax levy. If you go into the city areas, this slide is kind of flipped. More of it is state aid than the local tax levy. But 92% of the budget is funded by the taxpayers in Westfield. Then you can see, as I said, the other pieces of the pie were on the previous slide, but really the vast majority is our local tax levy. The state aid makes up 5.66%, obviously very important. We need it to stay at least that amount. We would love to see that increase again, as it has been over the last couple of years, but we just don't know for next year. Then if you go to the next slide, you'll see how the operating budget is spent in Westfield. This slide would be comparable to most districts in New Jersey. 78% of your budget, between 78 and 80% of the budget is always spent on salary and benefits. That's what we do. We educate students, we have staff, we pay them. That's the majority of it. Everything else is much smaller pieces of the pie. So when people say, why don't you make cuts here or make cuts there? Supplies and materials only account for 2% of our overall spending each year. Transportation and insurance, 4.6%. The out-of-district tuition, which is mandated by the state to provide for students, is 6.2%. There's not many things in here where you can cut. It's mandated by the state to provide these services to students. And I put in here also our capital reserve projects. Again, that's coming from our savings account, but I thought it was good to show that even that's a small piece of the pie, even the $4 million. So now we get into the potential tax impact of this. The average assessed value of a home in Westfield is $821,000. So what that equates to is the tax levy at the adjusted cap for the main portion of the budget, not the additional spending proposal, would be $11,322, which is an increase of $182 over last year. The additional spending proposal accounts for $165. So the total tax increase to an average taxpayer in Westfield would be $347. I think it's important to note too, because I did get questions on this last year, that when you see the 4.11% tax levy adjustment, that's over our tax levy from last year. That's not what the average taxpayer sees. When the taxes are calculated, it's based on the ratables for the township. So they take all of the assessed land in the town. If that number goes up, everyone pays a little bit less in taxes. So for this year, for 24-25, the assessed values went up in Westfield, probably from some new developments, new houses that are being taxed higher. We don't get to increase our budget by that money. And I know that that's always like, oh, if there's a new development, the Board of Ed would get a piece of that money. We do not. We are still only allowed to increase our budget on the tax levy from the previous year by 2%, or the adjustments that come up. So what happens is, this year, because the assessed values went up, it went down a little. So you're not really, the average homeowner's increase is not 4.11. It might be in the high 3 range when it's all said and done. I just thought it was important to note that for everyone. Okay. And then again, we have the slide now. Now we come back to the slide where the blue, the 2.62%, is the portion that the Board of Ed will be voting on. And that will be it. Last year, that also was on the ballot. The law has changed. Once the Board of Ed votes on that on March 26th, that piece of the budget is complete. Then the additional 0.59 and 0.9%, that's in the additional spending proposal that will be on the ballot, which you'll see the ballot question coming up, that will be presented to voters on April 16th. So here is the additional spending proposal. It's quite wordy because it goes over everything Ray said in the previous slides. It has it begins with retaining of the 7 staff members that we went over, and then it goes into the addition of the supervisor, for special services department, buildings and grounds, the maintenance. Everything that Ray said is in this question, spelled out in detail as mandated by the state. And the wording at the end, that it says approval of these taxes will result in a permanent increase to the tax base. That's very important. What it means is next year we will start to build our 2% off of the entire budget, the additional spending proposal plus the base. If we put items in here that were only for 1 year, let's say we bought computers, it would not be able to increase the spending base permanently. Staff, anything recurring that's in this question increases the tax base permanently. And then the last line, we also have to put in that the proposed additional expenditures are in addition to those necessary to achieve the New Jersey student learning standards. That's, as Ray said, nothing mandated can be put into an additional spending proposal. So I have to put all of this in for the county. The state will review it to ensure that none of the items in this are mandated by the state. They will ask questions. I have to provide documentation to them to support that.
Okay, so as we wind down the presentation, just key reminders of the next two steps. March 26th, the Board of Education will vote on the final base budget and the adjusted tax levy cap. Everything that you saw today included both percentages and dollars and cents, but moving into the actual ballot proposal on April 16th, as you saw on the prior slides, that will only provide the dollar figures. No percentages will be listed on the ballot, which is why this voter education is so critical to our communication plan. It's important to once again note that because the board will approve the base budget, that blue portion, once that is approved, the administration will be able to start the work of planning for next school year based upon anything that is in that blue budget. However, anything that is in the red or the green that is up for voter approval, that will require voters to approve in order for us to implement. And if they do not approve, then we are not permitted to implement any of those enhancements, meaning we're not permitted to fund those current staff members, those current 7 staff members, or any of the additional staffing that were proposed for our enrichment, buildings and grounds, or safety and security. So it's important just to understand the difference between those two funding proposals and resources, and also recognizing that while the board retains the responsibility for the large portion of the increase from year to year, the taxpayers still retain a very important role in being able to support that educational continuity and program enhancements. We also want to use this as the launching of our community engagement endeavor to ensure that the words that are shared during this meeting do not leave only at this, or aren't only left at this meeting, but will continue to be spread throughout the community in a variety of presentations conducted both in person as well as virtually. And to see any of those presentations, a schedule has been posted to our budget portal, which is found on our district website. So just go to the district website and you'll see across the top a link to that budget portal and community engagement schedule. So we always like to remind everyone, March and April will be spent in our community engagement campaign. March 26th will be the public hearing where the board will vote on the base budget as well as the additional spending proposal to appear on the ballot. And then on April 16th, polls will open at 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. for the community to vote on the budget as well as vote for members of the Board of Education. That concludes our presentation, and at this time, I will hand it back to the board president.
If any board members have any questions, if you can just let me know so we can ask the questions in orderly fashion. Go ahead, Brendan.
Thank you. I just want to note for a couple things. One, we spent a lot of time in finance, and you'll get my full report later on Friday, trying to figure out how to protect the 7 existing staff members. And we truly did not want to put any existing staff members on the ballot for obvious reasons. We don't want people to feel compelled to vote for a budget that they wouldn't otherwise vote for, nor do we want to put people currently employed in the district at risk. There just was no mathematical way to do that and continue to offer what we would like to do in this district. We're hoping that by cutting the number from 14 down to 7, sorry, lost my notes here. Cutting it down from 14 to 7, that the likelihood of passage will increase. And we also talked at length about strategy around how we want to present the budget, how we want to, what the right number is to ask for. And we know it's tough to ask for more. We always have to ask for more every year. There's no way, absent a seismic change in the way the state funds schools, that we're not going to ask for more taxes every year. It's an unfortunate reality. What this presentation didn't show, and we have in previous years, is the efficiency at which we use the tax dollars. The dollars per student that Westfield spends compared to other large K-12 districts statewide, we are among the lowest, if not the lowest, per pupil spending statewide. And we have received fantastic results with that. Imagine what we can do with just a little bit more. We don't like asking for more, and we are going to have to, but we want to we've continued to prove how well we do with every dollar that we collect. I know some will disagree, we should ask for more. Some will say we should never ask for more than the 2% that we don't have to go to the voters for. Here's the consensus budget that the board has agreed to, or will agree to, and it's a solid proposal going forward.
Thank you, Brendan. Anyone else? Sahar?
I just wanted to understand the expansion of the special education programs to keep children in district as opposed to sending them out of district. We would be extending from elementary school to both middle schools.
It's a program at both middle schools. There's 2 different programs.
Okay, but there's similar to what we have now. We have one program at one school and another program at another school. And then there would be the same 2 programs, an additional 2 program with the same structure, one at Edison, one at Roosevelt.
It would be 2 different programs.
Right.
It wouldn't be the one
We'll have
would be
4
like an MD and one would be an ERI program
Right.
at each school.
4 different programs. 2 different programs? I understand total 4 programs total that are different.
It's only 2 classes that we're offering. The number of students don't justify putting an MD class at Roosevelt and at Edison.
Okay.
So it's just one MD, one
Right, but
ERI.
currently we have gifted and talented at Edison and we have ESS at Roosevelt. So those are 2 programs that we have that are in existence, not necessarily special ed, but they're in 2, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear.
Oh.
They're in 2 different schools. So now we're adding 2 more programs into 2
Into
different
middle school,
schools.
yes.
Okay. That will be included in the blue
Yes.
so that
that's
it cannot
correct.
go away.
Correct. There's
Okay.
the staff for that, including behaviorists, teachers, and paraprofessionals, are included in the blue.
Okay. Is there any financial estimate of how much that would be saving? I know how much it will be costing, but how much it will be saving in terms of out of district?
It's a significant dollar amount that we would save by the students not going out of district, but in actuality, we're really trying to provide the least restrictive environment for the students to keep them in district.
Right.
And then continue programming on through the high school for them. We're also looking at that right now as part of our referendum and our budget, what we can start to fund,
Right.
looking forward after the next 3 years.
So it will benefit us in terms of least restrictive environment as well as potentially saving us money in terms of out of district, but that isn't necessarily something we can look at until we see how it develops.
Correct.
I just wanted to add, this is a personal opinion, so this building is the bare minimum of building for the special ed program that we would love to achieve. I think in this district and in every district, if we had infinite amounts of money. Just like with the gifted and talented program, which is not a special education program, but still, you're having to take your child away from the elementary school that they grew up in, that their children are in, that their siblings are in, and then put them in one school. And same thing with kids who are in Roosevelt, who grew up in the South Side schools. Now, I know that everybody merges, but just socially, it's not least restrictive. And I just think it's something just for us all to think about, that this is a great start, but there's a lot more that could be done that would be ideal. So I'm hopeful that this is just the beginning.
It's definitely just the beginning. We've been discussing it as part of our referendum planning. It's coming up over and over again to look at special ed programming in district.
Great.
Thank you, Layla. Sahar?
Okay, so you answered one of my questions. And hopefully we'll find out later how much money is actually saved. Is that right? From these two programs?
It'll always be an estimation because I don't know where the students would have gone and what the cost would have been.
Okay.
It's always more to send a student out of district because the transportation alone is significant to send a student to one of the special ed schools.
Okay.
It could range between $30,000 and $70,000 just to transport them to one of the schools.
Okay. So with regard to the elementary enrichment programs, which I'm thrilled to see, that's fantastic. I think it's in the blue, right? Excuse me, not in the blue, it's in the green. Just, so we have 3 instead of 6. Is that because are they full-time, the 3 enrichment teachers, and will they just be moving around
Correct.
instead of having 1?
They would be shared staff.
Okay. And is there anticipation that they may need to be 6? I'm just thinking of the ESL example where the teachers couldn't, well, although we had to move the students, but oftentimes the teachers couldn't be at the same place at the same time. Is that comparable, or do you think 3 was probably enough?
At this point, given the shared, shared opportunities we have, similar to other special area teachers, art teachers, music teachers, that don't necessarily reside in a single school, and they shared across. It all depends on scheduling. We believe that the 3 teachers would be able to meet the, programming needs across the elementary level.
Okay, great. What is home systems technology?
It's one of the courses that we're looking at in order to try to upgrade our course catalog. We're trying to come up with course offerings that would interest students so that it's not just, it's allowing them to take the practical arts of, electricity, plumbing, and wiring, and HVAC to understand really how that works in a school level, in your own home, but from a scientific standpoint. So you have the ability to really make practical real-world connections, similar to the way we'd be looking at foods. Instead of students just learning how to make cookies, understanding why cookies taste so good. I mean, we all know why cookies taste so good. Let's just be. But when you start looking at the science behind it, you start to elevate the offering so that it reaches the interest level of a wider variety of students.
Okay. I just couldn't tell if it was coding or, okay, that makes sense. With regard to the gifted program, are we making any improvements there in terms of staffing?
At this point, not in the current additional spending proposal, but what you'll recall is the programming development that's going to take place through this additional staffing would allow us to then look at additional staffing for G&T in the future. So if you recall, our current model is based upon a model that sends students to a single school from across the district. But as a result of having that one individual, the program is built around that. If we're able to build a bigger program that could then take advantage of the existing folks in the elementary school and then create a partner experience at the other intermediate school, then we could be able to define the additional human resources in a future budget proposal down the road. But we don't have the additional programming right now at the intermediate level to be able to justify that.
I guess the question was that I know one struggle was there wasn't enough staffing to actually manage the gifted program by someone who knows gifted education, which in itself is a unique skill set. And, I've expressed this publicly before, is that as somebody whose child was in it in a different district, in a different state, and then came here, my conclusion or my assessment of it is really more of a high achieving honors program in math and science. Don't have to agree with that, but it's not as comprehensive and robust as some other programs. And part of it, I'm sure there are many reasons, but part of it may be that there are not teachers or staff that actually know how to do that type of teaching. It's more project-oriented, it's more kind of, for lack of a better comparison, Montessori style, less structured learning. Anyway, I'm not an expert, but as a parent of a former gifted kid. So I'm hoping that that will be something that in the future we can reform.
Yeah, I do want to just emphasize, I mean, in the additional spending proposal slides, if you look back at the intermediate and secondary and the high school one, it really was about programming. So we recognize the need to develop the programming around those offerings to be more high level and really meet the needs of, the more contemporary offerings of a gifted and enrichment experience. So that's what the additional spending proposal is going to allow us to do. Right now, as we said, we have one person. One person can't do all of that and deliver the instruction. So by adding more staff, by adding more funding, it allows us to invest in our educators so that the experts can develop those programs effectively.
Okay, thanks. One other question related to fields. So we're hiring, it looks like 2 new staff. Do we have the budget for the cost of materials and equipment to maintain the fields?
I could probably take that one. So I was actually talking with Sean about it today. The idea is that I'm looking at for this year, in this year's budget, getting landscape carts. You know, the landscapers go around town and they have the cart with all the equipment in it. Right now we have equipment in sheds across the district, as some people have seen during the walkthroughs. I'd like to pick the best of the equipment and put it onto carts so that they're moving with that. We do have, at this point, equipment. It's just we need to assess, get the best instead of them going to an area, using what's there and moving on to the next. So we may need to add and fine tune as we go along, but I'll have the funding for that. It wouldn't be that major.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, is if
Yeah,
we get the
no.
staff and then they say we need all this stuff.
No.
And have we, it may be too premature, this may be something for next year, but in light of the failure of the Edison Fields proposal, are we now just in a holding pattern where we've got all this? I mean, I realize this is part of trying to resolve that, is having these new staff, hopefully having the equipment in the budget, but we still have a problem, which is we have a city that desires and thinks it has an excellent sports program, but doesn't have the fields to match it. So the rest of us are schlepping our kids, out of town. So is that going to be part of the referendum discussion?
So FK is still doing a fields analysis for us. They've hired somebody from Rutgers actually to help do the work. So they're doing soil analysis. They're going to be conducting that in March to get us those reports to help fine tune what our groundskeepers are going to be able to do. In the meantime, we have taken some proactive approaches. We've fixed up I shouldn't say fixed up. We've leveled out, I guess is the way to say it, the softball fields at the high school. I've ordered new bleachers for over there at the high school too, because it was a safety concern. So we're looking at things that we can handle, and then we have current staff. Our 2 current groundskeepers are taking the Rutgers classes for turf management, for field grass turf management, so that they will be able to better take care of the grass, to look, the seeding, the aeration, things that we couldn't do with only 2 staff members. I'm really hoping with 4 this summer, if the budget passes, the additional spending proposal, we would be able to really focus them on those tasks.
Okay, thank you. So just one final point, just to emphasize and it may be premature, but everything goes back to facilities, and I was glad to see that the community gets that. Have you, when you're going to the community events, is that part of the conversation in terms of the tens of millions of dollars it's going to require in terms of borrowing? Which sounds like, at least based on some of the numbers I've seen, it's not that much per month per resident over 30 years. But at some point, if you grow your gifted program, if you grow your special ed program to keep them in even within the south or north side, the kindergarten, we keep hitting the same wall. So I just wanted to offer you an opportunity to explain how that is going to play out, because I think the can's been kicked down the road for too long at this point.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to just address that is by acknowledging that where we find ourselves today and where we found ourselves last year was ensuring that the connection between the community and the district is now undeniable. The only way we are going to be able to move this district forward and expand the opportunities for our students is by having the direct support and involvement of our community. The school operating budget is really limited to programming, extracurriculars and programs that we get to offer, whether it be visual performing arts, athletics, enrichment, or anything that happens during the school day. But the general maintenance of the budget is really the general maintenance of our facilities is really the extent to which a district operating budget could manage all of the needs of our 10 buildings. Once you get to a level of need that requires construction or substantial renovation, unfortunately, the operating budget will not be the mechanism to do that. That is where a referendum, a bond will come in that requires a different sort of financing in order to address those needs. Anything that we've done up to this point, whether it be replacing boilers in the past, being able to support the replacement of some roofs through capital expenditures, we've been able to manage, here or there. But anything more concerted and large scale would not be able to be done in any reasonable amount of time if we're going to just attempt to do so through a capital fund expenditure. So as a result, once the budget is voted on in April, the next major conversation that's going to take place between the board, the administration, and the community will be about a referendum.
Kristen?
I just have two quick questions. Clarification on the safety and security presence. I just want to make sure I understand it. So those 3 part-time positions, that's going to increase the presence at elementary schools during the day and then more support after school? Is that correct?
Yeah, so it would be to provide additional support during the day, as you indicated, and after school, that after-school presence could be at the intermediate high school or elementary schools. Again, whenever we see an opportunity for large gatherings of students and families to attend an event, we now have a greater ability to use security personnel to assist. Currently, we do have the benefit of our partners in law enforcement who have been able to lend a hand, so this would increase our capacity across the board.
Okay, great. But it's going to allow more consistency at the elementary schools during the day.
It would allow, yes, it does not, and I just want to be clear, that does not create assign a single security individual for each school, but in the same way we have an increased presence through our school security specialist. Now we've been able to multiply his presence by 3, and again, you combine that with the existing patrols of our Westfield PD who are constantly walking through our schools. I'm very comfortable and confident in their ability to continue to keep our schools safe.
Okay, great. And then just one more question. This one I don't think we'll have an answer for, but just to throw it out there. So the GT and the enrichment proposals for middle school and high school are very math and science heavy. So I'm wondering what kind of programs can or will the district add for our language arts enthusiasts to make it a more comprehensive approach?
You're right. We don't have that answer right now because
I figured.
that's really what we're looking at.
But I want to throw it out there.
But it's similar to the response to Sahar's question. Part of the work that has to take place is in the development of these programs. So we put out there reference to the science, computer science, design thinking, because those are actual standards that are required by the state that we definitely need to bolster up. Okay. Our ability to create a program that is both STEM and humanities, focus certainly is a balance that we'd be looking to strike. But we don't have that specific program outline in place now. But with the support, hopefully, of the additional funding proposal, we would have the individuals in place who would be able to start to build those programs.
Great.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Sure. So just, when we first started talking about this, we're comparing this year to last year. I actually want to start comparing it to 2 years ago, when many of us were sitting here talking about only what we could cut and what we could not keep. And the discussion about what we're adding, forget is an additional funding proposal, but even just within the 2% that we were able to work with was absolutely non-existent because we weren't able to add. When we first started talking about the budget, the question said, would the board support something a little bit more of the additional funding? My answer to that was it depends. And the it depends part of that has worked out, certainly as I've seen this and seen it develop in the Finance Committee, very, very well. Because what we're seeing is, talking about adding, not cutting, which is fantastic. And that has a lot to do with the plan for the future, which we clearly have. Because each of these expenditures, as certainly as I asked in committee and others have as well, is tied to something. It's tied to a goal. It's tied to an achievement. It's tied to an aspiration, whatever it may be. So what I was very happy to see in this budget is additions to things that will ultimately result in savings in other areas. The part of the pie chart that sort of jumps out at me is we're talking about required maintenance budget of 2%, which is more than half of our transportation budget and 3 times less than the out-of-district tuition that we're talking about. And there's only so much savings you're going to get, from staff and the rest. I don't think we want to have that much savings from staff and the rest because we hire and retain good people for a very, very good reason, because it's what's good for our kids. But when we start planning into the budget now programs that will, over time, be able to shift some of those percentages, maybe in out-of-district tuition, maybe in transportation, to more programmatic things, towards more maintenance-related things for the facilities, which are the things that are really being highlighted in the thought exchange and the rest, we're moving that budget in the right direction. When we're building a foundation for the items that will come up in our referendum, right, by hiring new staff and groundskeepers, we can have great fields. We can tear one apart and build the best grass, turf, whatever you want to call it, concrete, whatever surface you like, that's great. But if we don't have the people who are going to maintain it, we're going to be right back where we were, right back where we are now, because that's not what we have. So what I'm very happy to see in this is, you don't buy a house and get really excited about the air conditioning or the ductwork, right? But we have to build that to have it, or else you're just not going to have anything to build on. So that's what I like to see in this budget. It's why I'm going to be very happy when the vote comes to back it up, because we are increasing, not dropping, and we are building with a plan for the future. So that's what I always took out of our meetings. I just wanted to share that with the public.
Go ahead, Layla.
Rob, I just wanted to add on to that. I was sitting here listening, and as we're coming upon our third term, those who were elected 3 years ago, I think that there has been such tremendous shifts in where the district was financially and where the district was in terms of planning and organization. And I think we are so much headed in the right direction. And I feel like when we talk about, well, we really like to see this, and how come this isn't done? That's just because ideally, we're talking about like what our dreams would be if we had infinite possibilities, but where everything is grounded in our strategic plan now. Everything is grounded in what the community is expressing as interest to them. And I think that with these guidelines, we are in the right place. But the fact is also that we will always have individual children who will need to be sent out of district, whose needs cannot be met here no matter how extensive the program is getting, who need specialty in different areas. We will always have children who require some kind of transportation, and unfortunately we can't. I wish we could. I'm going to that meeting tomorrow. I'm curious to see what that budget looks like. We can't control the cost of transportation. So I think that we're stuck in a position where we have all these goals, we have all these dreams, but we also need to be grounded in reality. And I just wanted to express my gratitude, because I think that everyone in the administration, on the Finance and Facilities Committee, has really done such an amazing job and has walked us all through this process, which, if you're not a math person, and I'm certainly not, you've explained it and you've really brought us on this journey with you, and it's so nice to see where we're headed when it was so unclear 3 years ago. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you, Layla. Does any other board members? Okay, thank you for all that thoughtful comments, and thank you for the presentation. Now I'd like to turn it over to Casey Eisner for the high school student representative report.
In the lead up to spring break, WHS clubs and organizations are hard at work preparing meaningful events for the school community. Last month, No Place for Hate ran a successful game activity period focused on promoting diverse perspectives with the help of special game dice created by the Makerspace class. On Friday, the Girls Learn International Club will be hosting a Barbie movie night. And as everyone saw here tonight, the theater department is currently hard at work preparing for the spring musical Heathers. SGA, in partnership with the Community Service Club, continues to plan for March's activity period focused on Community Service Day. Through this upcoming Monday, SGA will continue collecting supplies for the activity period using our Amazon wish list. Looking ahead, there will also be a book drive with donations going to the Bridge of Books Foundation and the Westfield Memorial Library. Lastly, in honor of former WHS principal Dr. Nelson, SGA and the Community Service Club are raising money for the Wounded Warrior Project, which supports soldiers and veterans. In addition to the community service aspects of this month's activity period, the event is aimed at promoting school spirit. As students assemble the toiletry kits and write letters to service members and people in nursing homes, they will cheer on those competing in the annual Student vs. Staff basketball game and enjoy a performance by the WHS dance team. Last week, student government officers and a sampling of WHS students participated in a focus group for the cafeteria company Chartwells, giving feedback on how students feel about the cafeteria food. With so many exciting events going on in the WHS community, students continue to get involved inside and outside of the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. At this time, I'd like to move forward with the board committee reports. We'll start with the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee Chairperson, Kristen.
We don't have a report. SIP has not met since our last meeting, but our next scheduled meeting is this upcoming Monday, March 11th.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Finance and Facilities.
Yep.
Brendan.
So we spent a lot, Finance and Facilities met on Friday. We spent a lot of time talking about the budget, both in that meeting and here, so I'm going to skip the bulk of it. We did talk about the capital reserve withdrawals that will be occurring both in this budget and for next year. We're setting aside an additional $875,000 for anything related to the Roosevelt facade, $1.6 million for IDF closet HVAC in the IDF closets. This can't wait for a referendum, and those areas are separate contained areas that wouldn't be impacted by anything we do referendum-wise anyway. And $1.48 million for HVAC projects. In Roosevelt, we're dividing room 123 into three different spaces, and they require ventilation. We spent a lot of time also talking about our upcoming referendum, different scenarios, and what the tax impact of those might be. We also discussed creating a referendum committee of members of the public, board members, and staff members. We don't yet have a finalized plan as to what that's going to look like, but we will go over that with our architects at the next Finance and Facilities meeting. There are two policies on the agenda for tonight that are coming from our committee. Both are state mandated updates to language. One has to do with food services and the other has to do with vandalism. Both are just referencing updated statutes and the responsible person for implementing each of those. Going back to Roosevelt facade, the decorative ornamental panels that had broken have been delivered and are being installed. Scaffolding will stay up while they break and repoint the brick on the Clark Street side. As the weather warms up, they'll be able to finish the concrete work on Clark and then move over to the Tuttle side of the building. That's phase 2. We'll start in the spring and continue through the summer. If the schedule works, phase 3 may begin this year, otherwise it will have to continue next year. Roof issues have been a popular topic lately. And you'll see on the agenda tonight that we're withdrawing, I believe, $300,000 to remove solar panels and inspect and repair those roofs. Most of the roof repairs are under warranty, but removing the solar is on us. So that will occur at Edison, Tamaulipas, and now there's a section of the high school that also needs to be repaired. And our next meeting is March 22nd, the Friday before our next board meeting. Any questions on anything that we've discussed? All right.
Thank you, Brendan. Next is the report for policies, personnel, and governance. That you, Mary?
Yes, we don't have a report tonight. We are next meeting on March 14th.
Thank you, Mary. At this time, I'd like to recognize the public on agenda action items only. During this portion of the meeting, district residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on agenda's action items only. And as a courtesy, we'd like to allow current student staff of Westfield Public Schools to speak first. The board requests that individuals sign in and state their name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation, if applicable, for the record. For the record, the specific action items they are commenting on, and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from the meeting or adjournment of the meeting. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration.
Good evening. My name is Mark Shore from Westfield. I am the current parent of a Westfield High School sophomore. I had a couple questions on the budget as you were going through it. You mentioned the 0.59% in the red. Are we to assume if that gets approved by referendum that that is a permanent part of the budget that the future 2% will be applied to? And does it also include the 0.9%, or is it, so the entire 1.49% would be a future cast forward? On the 0.59%, you stated it would save approximately 7 teacher positions. Do we know if those were 7 positions that were added from a prior discretionary portion of the budget?
You ask all the questions,
Okay.
and at the end, if there's
All right.
anything we can have.
Sure, thank you. All right, so that would be question number 1. How many of the 7 faculty included in the 0.59% were part of a prior enhancement? You've answered one of my questions already. And I think if I heard this correctly, what you stated was the 1.49% would become a permanent part of the budget, that all future 2% would be, a larger base would be applied to. So in that sense, I think that's a good thing, if I'm reading it correctly, because we'd have a larger base for the 2% to be applied to, in a sense. And if not approved, the 1.49%, I assume we'll be in the same situation, if not worse, in future years, because we're unlikely to get any more additional funding from the state on that, I'll call it discretionary for lack of a better vocabulary at this point. And I would like to know, as a couple people have asked, what the estimated savings would be by bringing some of the special education students back into Westfield. I understand you can't give a clear answer, but I think there's probably some sort of estimate that could be made on a per person basis, I would think. Because at least we're going to be saving the transportation, I would assume, versus some of that. And then in the budget, I didn't see any item for, line item for legal. Where would that be incorporated into? What line item would legal be incorporated into? Certainly with, I know what's going to be likely coming down the road in the very near future, or is already in process. That's all my questions. Thank you.
I'd just like to reiterate that the board may not respond to items raised during public forum, and all public comments will be considered, but we may not respond during the public comment section.
Hi, Julie Steinberg, Westfield, New Jersey. I first want to just reiterate some of the comments that everybody made and congratulate the board, because I do agree that 2 years ago the budget was very frightening, watching things being cut into bone. And Patty, I want to give you credit for all the work you must have done here, and everybody here for all the teamwork that must have gone into such an improved state and such thoughtful planning and maneuvering to get us to where we are. I guess we could also thank the state of New Jersey for the additional funds. But I do think, though, that, you know, the fact that you guys you didn't just wait for the state to maybe or maybe not give you those funds, to look for the waivers, to look for the other opportunities, is something that we should all really be grateful for. I have a question regarding 11A, particularly as it relates to the special education costs and the new programming. As a special education parent, it's important to understand exactly what is being proposed. What are these new classrooms, and how are they going to serve an LRE when these kids obviously are being considered for out-of-district placements because their needs could not be previously met? I think that it's important that regardless of this, if any other services being offered in the special education realm by the district are changing or have been changed, if, for example, anything in the LLD realm was offered once at one level and now isn't being offered anymore, or iPrep or anything else, I think it's really important, and Dr. Weissman always does a very good job communicating with his parents, but I think it's very important that we all understand, because you're talking about a major assumed cost efficiency, and one, I think it's important for us as parents to know what that means for our kids. Two, who is going to really benefit from it? Three, how are you going to get a group of kids with such a potentially diverse range of needs, again, understanding what these classrooms are for and who they are serving? And four, how are we addressing the other gaps, whether it's the excessive case management load in special education, or in fact the gap that exists in first grade to fifth grade, as it's the only part of our program that does not have an in-classroom ICS class at every elementary school. We do provide it in the middle schools, dual classrooms. We do provide them at the high schools. So one has to also wonder if perhaps part of the gap comes from jumping from elementary school to middle school, if in the past that has also contributed, not having those opportunities to move through different LREs, different opportunities. And so I would just strongly recommend that, in addition to all the good work that's been done on the budgeting side, perhaps give some more qualitative examples of what this means, because special education parents really need to understand what's available to them and what the process is for their children to proceed through the system, whether it's where they're coming from before to where they'll be 10 years later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I could. Did we close?
At this time, I'd like to close public comment.
So I'll begin, and Patty, feel free to jump in. So the question about the 7 teachers that are listed in that .59, at this point, the only thing we've identified are the levels: 3 elementary, 2 intermediate, and then the 2 at the high school. And part of the reason is because we need to identify at the time, if that decision needs to be made, what teachers are potentially already in process of retiring, resigning, what potential class sizes have already changed in a way that would potentially reduce a position that exists. So the specifics as to who those 7 teachers are is not yet determined for those reasons. What I can say is this is not proposing that any of the programs that we added last year, for instance, the counselors or the academic support teachers, that any of those programs would be impacted by this. So I know that was a question whether or not any of the prior year additions would be affected by this. That is not the expectation that we would have. But we wouldn't be able to go into any more specific detail until such time that we would have to look at the full slate of employees and what our potential vacancies or resignations and retirements look like. The other question, and I'm sorry, Patty, was there anything else on that I missed?
Not on that,
Okay.
no.
And then when it comes to special education, I think the programs, listen, the part of the calculation when we're building our budget factors in, as we said, decisions that have yet to be made. So when we factor in the cost of sending a student out of district, what factors into that is the cost of transportation and tuition. If we don't know where they're going, we can't calculate how much it's going to cost to transport them there. If we don't know where they're going, we can't calculate the exact tuition. So that the amount that we're factoring in to our calculation, takes into account what's the average tuition and transportation.
The average tuition is probably about $80,000 at this point, and the transportation about $40,000 to $50,000.
So when you look at what we're proposing, tuition and transportation are the key, variables. But if we have 5 students who are eligible for movement into the 6th grade, if 4 of those students remain in district and 1 student we are unable to maintain in district because we can't meet his or her needs, then obviously that's going to offset that number and that savings. So those are the variables that our business office takes into account, but that's also the reason why we can't, calculate any greater percentage. But I hope that, at least the tuition and transportation gives an idea. And then last but not least, the special ed programs that had been referenced, the expansion, are for the emotional regulation impairment class, which currently exists in the district, as well as our MD class. So when you look at our 2 classes that exist at the elementary level in Wilson, they don't have companion programs at the intermediate level. So those would be the 2 specific programs that we would be looking to expand, not with the intent to reduce any programs or offerings to parents within the district in order to make that happen, but to actually be able to provide something that we currently don't offer at the intermediate level. The recommendations and suggestions continue to explore whatever options in programming we have. 100%. That is part and parcel of the work that that Dr. Weissman is doing with Alex Linden in the Department of Pupil Personnel as part of his work and as part of the charge of the goal number 2 within the strategic plan, to really ensure that our programs and offerings include the strategies and services that we provide, both through separate self-contained programs or through any other means of delivering special education supports, in-class support, co-teaching, additional types of resources through specialized instruction or instructors. So that's all within the realm of possibility. But again, with each opportunity to build our budget, we take a stab at trying to be able to build that, and then based upon the success or not, then we determine what we're able to do the following year. So each year that we're continuing to do that, our Department of Special Services continues to look at our existing programs and offerings and the classification needs of our students, both current and the ones that are up and coming. As we have students who enroll in our schools in Lincoln, we're able to see what their needs are. When students arrive in 1st grade, we're able to see what their needs are, and we're able to project into the future so that, if we have a need that we could meet currently, that's great. If we don't, then we take advantage of the time that we have to try and build budgets or build classrooms and programs as necessary. So I hope that helps explain that as well.
I'm going to add 2 other things. So with the special ed programs, as Ray said, we're building from the bottom up. We're not looking to take students that are currently out of district and move them back into district. Obviously, we would invite students to come back into district. If they see our programs are successful, we can always do that. But the idea is not to take kids that are in their current programs and start to move them forcefully from where they are. These students that we're looking at now are in district programs, so it's just a continuation of services for them in district where they have been since pre-K. The other thing was the additional spending proposal. I just want to say again that will build on the base for the tax for next year. So if both parts of the budget are voted on, we will build 2% off of that entire $117 million next year. So that is important to note. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to emphasize something that oftentimes people don't notice is when you take a look at that budget, it's $8.2 million for out-of-state tuition, right, for our special education children. So one hopes, or at least I would hope, that when we get the facilities, that we can keep some of our own students in our city, in our town, with their neighbors, with their, their friends. So, I mean, I appreciate that question, but hopefully it can be part of that broader conversation. It's not just about the money, but it's also about what you said, the least restrictive. But 8.2 million is a lot of money that one wonders what part of that could one still spend, but keep those kids with our community.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to approve the minutes from February 20th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes. Can I have a second? Thank you, Kristen. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I abstain too.
Okay, we're moving on to board action agenda. Governance, Rob?
Sure, I'd like to move item A under the governance agenda. Thank you, Kent. For the second, any questions or discussion? Seeing none?
Patty, can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccia,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Charles Jelinas, Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic-Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
I abstain.
Okay, personnel, Mary?
Yes, I'd like to move items A through O under the personnel section of tonight's agenda. Ray, do you have any, can I have a second first? Kristen, got it. Ray, do you have anything you want to say?
I do. This evening, we recognize two retirees. Monica Gundrum began her career in Westfield Public Schools in 1999 as a teacher of kindergarten at Tamaqua Elementary School. She dedicated her initial 7 years to teaching kindergarten before moving to first grade for 4 years and eventually to second grade for the last 14. Her colleagues describe Monica as a reliable and dependable individual and has rarely missed a day of work over her career. As a mentor teacher in recent years, Monica has guided less experienced colleagues, drawing from her rich teaching experience. Her departure marks the end of a significant era at Tamaqua, leaving a lasting impact on both colleagues and students. Dorothy Wade. Dorothy Wade began her career in the Westfield Public Schools in September of 2000. As an elementary school teacher at Wilson Elementary School, her colleagues describe her as an energetic, enthusiastic, and vibrant educator who goes above and beyond to design engaging experiences for her students. In her class, you don't just learn about the 13 colonies, you adopt a colony and create a persuasive advertisement for it. You also don't just learn about plants, you collaborate with a professor from Rutgers so that you can grow your own lettuce hydroponically. Dorothy is looking forward to spending more time with her grandchildren, but her presence at Wilson definitely will be missed. We wish both of these individuals a happy and healthy retirement.
Thank you. Patty, can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccia,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Charles Jelinas, Layla Morelli, Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic-Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Okay, finance and facilities?
Yes. Thank you. I'd like to,
Ken?
He voted already.
I'm telling you. I'd like to move, first we'll do item A, which is approving the tentative 2024-2025 budget, and then we'll do the others. So may I have a second on moving item A?
Second.
Thank you, Brendan. Any questions, or can we go ahead and move?
Okay. Patty, can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Charles Jelinas, Leila Morelli, Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
All right, thanks. And now I'd like to make a motion to move items B through I in the finance section, but I also like to highlight some donations. We have 4 this evening, an anonymous one for $1,000 for the Roosevelt Technology purchases. Second, from the Westfield Coalition for the Arts, $4,341.51 to support the classrooms of the following visual and performing arts teachers: Mr. Altman at Edison, Mr. Doyle at Roosevelt, Mrs. Guilford at Roosevelt, Mrs. Greenwood at Roosevelt, and Mrs. Schwarzenbeck at the Westfield High School. Third, thank you to the Keene University Holocaust Resource Center for $525 to cover the cost of supplies and educational material for a collaborative, commemorative project undertaken by the district and KU's HRC to highlight the importance of Holocaust and genocide remembrance in Union County. And fourth, thank you to the Westfield School Boosters Association for a donation of $2,895 to purchase Gilman lacrosse goals for the Westfield High School. So thank you to all 4 organizations. With this total tonight, the donations for this school year now total $62,482.10. Nice amount, so thank you.
Okay. Patty, can we have a vote?
Did I have a second, please? I'm sorry. Thank you, Leila. Now we can have a...
Okay, now can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Charles Jelinas, Leila Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Okay, policies. Layla? Mary?
Oh, okay, it's me again. I'd like to move item A under the policy section of tonight's agenda. Can I have a second? Oh, Brendan. Hey, thank you. Any questions?
Can I have a vote, Patty?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Charles Jelinas, Leila Morelli, Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Curriculum instruction and assessment, Kristen?
I'd like to move action items A through C under curriculum. A through B. A, ask the board to approve 2 field trips, and B, ask the board to approve a student teaching intern at Tamaqua. Can I have a second?
Second.
Ken? Anybody have any questions?
Okay, Patty, can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Charles Jelinas, Leila Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to acknowledge the notes for the record. And then moving on to unfinished business, new business, liaison reports. Okay, Mary, go ahead.
First, I'll be quicker. Yeah, I just want to talk about Jefferson School for a minute. I went to their PTO meeting on February 21st, and I've been asking for them to give me some good news to share with the board. I went there to talk about the budget, so I did that first, and then they were good enough to let me know some of the great happenings that they've been doing at Jefferson. A couple of them were on February 22nd. They had their math and science night, which the parents and the teachers put on for the kids. So they did math games and science activities that evening. The Early Act Club organized a food drive, and they collected over 800 food items that they were able to donate to the Grace Church and Holy Trinity food pantries.
April and May, they're going to be starting up their spring STEM classes after school, which are run by Jefferson teachers in collaboration with the PTO. And those are offered after school for free. And also, this week, they're starting to celebrate social emotional learning, which is spearheaded by their counselor, Ms. Salicetti. And the students will be participating in activities that will focus on self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Rob?
You're right. So 2 reports. One is from the Rec Commission, which met last night. 2 items to highlight there. First, if you are on the waiting list for the pool, check your emails today and going forward. They are proceeding to that list now. It's one of the better deals in town. They're going to fill the membership certainly, so just keep an eye out for those. They told me a lot of emails are going to spam, so check there as well. The second thing from the Rec Commission is the playground camp that has been in effect now for a couple of years is back on. They are getting a lot of students interested in participating, but they are looking for help for counselors and site supervisors. They're looking for high school students. So if you are a high school student or the parent of one and you would like to A, get out of the house, or B, get your high schooler out of the house for work, now would be the time to apply. Just go to the Rec Commission's website, download the application. They're taking those now and interviewing as we speak. The second liaison report is a little bit different. I was invited to visit Miss Muntz's 4th grade class in Franklin to talk about the importance of being involved in your community. Regardless of what level of talent you have and how old you may be, there is always an opportunity for you to get involved. And the students took the challenge of talking about things that were going on in the district and giving their suggestions for what they might like to see as we plan for the future very seriously. I will tell you that asking a group of 10-year-olds an open-ended question like that is an exercise in bravery, but we were okay. So the students had a number of thoughts that they asked me to bring to the board, and since I don't like to break my promises, I will do that now. Very interestingly, much like our thought exchange is, the students were very focused on facilities and space. They are very supportive of additional classroom space for music and the arts, very supportive of additional classroom space for technology and STEM, and exceedingly supportive of improvements to playgrounds and fields, in particular based on data, which I know the superintendent loves his data, so do these students. One of the students took it upon herself to take an informal poll of, quote, like 500 fifth graders, end quote, who wanted to see certain things going on at the playground, including seesaws. So however that would work, it's now on record. Also talked about curriculum. The students are very supportive of additional classes in STEM and technology, of extending art, music, and language classes, not only within their schools, but to grades younger than them. And very much in favor, as will come to the surprise of no one, for increased opportunities for field trips. And suggestions for that range from the Turtleback Zoo, which is probably something that we could consider, to going to Disney, which may be a little bit harder to plan for. Finally, I guess we'll call this in the policy realm, students were very concerned that whatever we are doing in our district, that we make sure that those things are available and accessible to students of all different ages and all different abilities. And I'm really not making that up. This was, no matter what we talked about, they wanted to make sure that the younger grades and their friends of any level of learning and ability were able to access playgrounds, able to access coursework and the rest. They also wanted to see a significant increase in the kindness weeks and cultural studies. So if anybody was concerned about the kinds of students that our teachers are putting out, that our district are putting out, and that our parents, quite frankly, are putting out, we are really raising a group of very selfless and very empathetic students, as shown by this class. There were actually 2 things that I forgot to mention, which I will hear about if I don't. The first, and I don't know where we would put this exactly, maybe we can talk to Sean about this, is if we can turn the water fountains in the schools, the water refill bottles, if we can set up a line so that they can give lemonade as well as water. That was one biggie. And the other is just if we could just take Wednesdays off completely, just stop them right there just for a little bit in the school year. So that is the conclusion of the report, and thanks to Ms. Muntz and the students for being so forthcoming.
Nobody likes hump day.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, at this time, I'd like to recognize the public. During this portion of the meeting, members of the public are invited to address the Board of Education on any topic. As a courtesy, we'd like to allow current student staff of Westfield Public Schools to speak first. The board requests that individuals sign in and state their name, municipality of residence, and group affiliation, if applicable, for the record, and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president, not to individual board members or staff. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from the meeting or adjournment of the meeting. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration.
Hi. I would like to address today the addition of 3 security guards that was put into the budget. I find it deeply concerning the lack of specificity that was put into how this, what these security guards will do, who these security guards will be, what their roles will be, whether they will be armed security guards, what their training will be. I find it deeply concerning that we are putting these security guards who may or may not be trained, possibly with guns, in front of our elementary school students. I believe that we have had great success with our SROs. I deeply enjoy I greatly love Officer Colello. I think he's amazing. I think our SRO program is amazing. I think that the ability for our SROs to interact with students and the fact that not only that they exist, but also that they interact with the students and get to know the students allows them to succeed on a deeper level, while putting these officers or possibly not trained officers into our schools may create a environment that may seem hostile to students and may create a unsafe environment for students. There are also studies that show that armed security guards do not actually decrease the amount of crime or the possibility of shootings in schools. While it is a, while we all know it's an issue, and while having these people on campus will increase their time to respond, it has been shown that just having people on site does not actually decrease the impulse. Like, if someone's going to come onto our campus and do something, they're not going to stop just because these people exist. It just changes the amount of time that they're going to have to respond, and if they're not trained properly, that response may not be as effective as if they are trained properly. So it is very important that when you go into this hiring process and when you make this budget, that you make it very specific what their role is, what their job is, and what they need, what they are going to be doing, basically, and what training they need to have in order to do this job. And also at an elementary school level, how they're going to act. Elementary school kids need to be able to come in, see someone with a smiling face, not someone who's standing there scowling at them with a gun. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to close public comment since there's nobody else up there waiting.
Hi, I just want to be able to respond to Mr. Taylor's comments. So thank you for bringing those questions up. They're very appropriate and valid questions, and fortunately, I have an answer to help provide some clarity. Consistent with the introduction of the school security specialist that was brought to the Westfield School District 2 years ago, the position is intended to be filled by an individual who has law enforcement experience. So that training, I would agree, is absolutely a prerequisite to being able to successfully fill that position, as they would have the requisite, perspective and experience in being able to manage the safety and security needs, as well as working with law enforcement to do so. As with our current safety and security specialists, these positions would not be armed. Currently, the only individuals who are armed in the district are those who work for law enforcement, so that those individuals who are employed by the police department, whether they are as SROs or as patrolmen and women who make their way into our schools, those would be the only individuals who'd be authorized to carry. The individuals who we may hire may have the license to do so. So if down the road that ever changes, we would have the ability to activate that. But that wouldn't be without notifying the community, and certainly without the conversation at the board level. So at this point, the individual's responsibilities would be consistent with the current safety and security specialist, so that they would be a visible presence in our schools to be able to provide support, to provide observation, to provide a visual deterrent for anyone who is interested in not following the rules and potentially coming into our schools, but not from a student discipline standpoint, but really from an outsider standpoint. Their ability to be an extra set of eyes and ears to ensure that our schools are safe is really the intent behind it, and we would certainly further spell that out in any job description. Any job description that is developed for this position would ultimately be presented to the Board of Education for approval as well, so that you would be able to see that at a future board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. This time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second? Second. Thank you, Kent. All in favor?